Hello and welcome to Soul Steps. I'm David Gallagher. I will never, ever forget Friday, December 13th. Yes, Friday the 13th, 2019. Because that evening, outside of Maybank, Texas, in a very rural area, at 8:30 in the evening, it was totally dark, there came a knock at my brother's front door where I was staying. I was visiting. And when that knock came out in the middle of nowhere at 8:30 at night, my brother, who's lived in Texas a long time, he immediately pulled his gun, not knowing who could be unexpectedly on his front porch at that time of night. And he cracked the door open, and there was a man standing there on the porch with papers. And he said, I need to see David Gallagher, please. And then I peered around, we opened the door, and I was handed divorce papers. And what a surprise. Certainly the time of day. Certainly brought a whole new meaning to me of the 12 days of Christmas. Ho, ho, ho. But I'm reminded that when we receive bad news, for me that was bad news. It wasn't completely unexpected. And yet there's always that longing and that hope that, in this case, divorce doesn't have to happen and that you can find a way forward. You can work it out somehow. And yet when I was served with those divorce papers, there was a finality. And what turned out to be a needed reality check on my part that it wasn't going to work. And that although I had taken my wedding vows at that time, some 21 years earlier, never expecting or anticipating that I would be divorced, I was getting divorced. Watching my brother pull his gun in a situation where we didn't know what was going on or why it was happening, made me think of the scripture in John chapter 18 and in Matthew 26, the same account of the crowd, the teachers of the law and their cohorts, finding Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane to arrest him, and Peter pulling out his sword. John 18 says, Then Simon Peter, who had a sword, drew it out and struck the high priest's servant, cutting off his right ear. And Jesus commanded Peter, Put your sword away. Shall I not drink the cup the Father has given me? And in Matthew 26, it's written, Put your sword back in its place, Jesus said. For all who draw the sword will die by the sword. Do you think I cannot call on my Father? And he will at once put at my disposal more than 12 legions of angels? But how then would the scriptures be fulfilled that say it must happen this way? You know, when what we see as bad and stressful things happen, or we're confronted, or people we love are confronted with bad, difficult, stressful situations, how often is it that we immediately grab our sword in order to start fighting the very thing that we see taking place? And Jesus in this passage is trying to explain to Peter, this is not the way. This is not the time to pull the sword. And in fact, Peter, you have one sword. And I could call on my Father and I would have 72,000 swords in the hands of 72,000 angels. Because at that time, one Roman legion equaled 6,000 soldiers. And Jesus had all the power in heaven and on earth at his disposal, and he did not take advantage of it. He said, Peter, this is a time to surrender, because otherwise the scripture can't be fulfilled, that it must happen this way. Today, when you're confronted with difficult, hurtful, challenging situations, and everything in you wants to scream for you to pull out your sword and to start swinging it and doing damage, can I encourage you that just maybe you pause long enough to ask God what he wants you to do? You might just hear him say, leave the sword in its sheath, because I'm doing something here you can't comprehend, you can't understand. But in the end, it will all be according to God's plan and purpose, and you will be not just fine, but you'll be great when you get in the flow of what God is doing. Think twice before you pull the sword. God bless you. Thanks for watching Soul Steps today. Thanks for remembering us in your prayers and in your giving. And if you'd like to reach out to us, write us at hello@soulsteps.org. Thanks. God bless.